Live right here on this Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie. I am Ben. We are just a few days away from the month of March. That is Saturday. Only 3 days remain. About 2 weeks left of our college basketball regular season at the high major level. This Sunday, conference tournaments start in one of the greatest weeks that you will see. Really, 2 weeks, first at the mid-major level. Everybody trying to punch that ticket to the big dance through an automatic berth. And then at the high major level in conference tourneys, trying to solidify your seed line or your position in the NCAA tournament. Donnie, today we're going to go conference by conference. Look at some of the odds to reach a Final Four, to win a national championship, and ask some big picture questions. Let's start in the Big Ten. According to Joe Lunardi's bracketology yesterday, the Big Ten Conference had 10 teams into the big dance. Of course, one of the things that has plagued the Big Ten in the last 2.5 decades is the Big Ten as a whole has not won a national championship with a Big Ten team currently in the league since Michigan State and Tom Izzo did so way back in the year 2000. The Spartans, as of this moment, have the best price for a Big Ten team to reach the Final Four at plus 850. Best number to win a national championship as well at 40-1. A lot to be decided, DRS, and who that top seed is in the Big Ten tournament. But the big question to you, who should be the favorite of the Big Ten tournament? Perhaps who has the best outlook to make a deep run come March?
I mean, it's probably going to be Michigan State, as you see, is the favorite there, but also the graphic is kind of skewed. Like you say, okay, to make the Final Four, Michigan State is plus 850, but Wisconsin is 9-1. But if they want to win it, one team is plus 850, and then also Wisconsin is 45-1. Like it doesn't, like the graphic itself isn't really explaining the overall totality of that conference. I'm not sure if that's actually the correct. Is that the correct pricing right there?
I think we had a misprint. Plus 850 for Michigan State to get to the Final Four, a 40-1 number on Sparty to win a national championship. So I think it could have just been a slight miscue there, but we'll clear that up. So, plus 850 for MSU to get to the Final Four, shortest number. 40-1 price to cut down the nets as a national champ, also shortest number out of the Big Ten.
Yes, and also when you're lining it up, too, if you're just going with like some KenPom numbers, usually you want to have that perfect mix. You got to be able to play really good defense. We understand that. You need a head coach who typically has a pedigree in winning in March. Now, it's been a while, as you explained, for Michigan State, but I do think they're the best team. So offense, if it fails in one game, you can rely on defense. If your defense isn't playing well, you can rely on your offense. So it sort of works hand in hand. But if we're looking for that upshot team that's like, you know what, it's something that we really haven't paid attention to, is probably Wisconsin. Because right now, if you run that offense, that can be the ultimate equalizer. You're not getting your three-point shots. It used to be Wisconsin used to make deep runs in the tournament. Why? Because they played really good defense, slowed it down on offense, and were extremely efficient. But we always talk about the margin of victory, or should I say like the margin of error that you have during a game. If you're limiting possessions here and not the ability to go into the mid to high 70s on a game-to-game basis, oh, no, look, you're in a battle every single night. Wisconsin's offense has actually turned it on to be the best offense in the Big Ten, and that could be something. But for me, you're trusting pedigree at this moment right now. And Michigan State, offensively and defensively, the best team in the Big Ten for me, Ben.
Not your father's Wisconsin offense, 88 points last night against Washington. Make that 16 games of 80-plus this year for the Badgers, the most they have ever recorded in a single season in school history. I have a Final Four bet on Wisconsin. I have a Big Ten regular season championship bet on Michigan State. And I do believe, DRS, based on the analytical numbers, Maryland might be the best suited team to make a deep run in March out of the Big Ten. The Crab Five, as they are known. Jacoby Gillespie, Selton Miguel, Rodney Rice, Derek Queen, the outstanding freshman, and Julian Reese. They pretty much have all of the production for Kevin Willard and the Terps. Huge game tonight, by the way. Top 20 tilt in College Park as Maryland, 3.5-point home favorite, plays host to Michigan State. Purdue made a run to the Final Four and a national championship game last year. First bid to the Final Four for the Boilers in more than 4 decades since 1980. They have looked good at times, and Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn still playing great basketball. Not a ton of depth for Purdue this season. Michigan, an intriguing team. 14 games, DRS, this year decided by 5 points or fewer. 10-4 straight up in those games. You wonder, when you have won so many games and played in so many games featuring a close margin, if that is a benefit for the tight games that you can expect in the madness come the NCAA tournament, or if your luck perhaps starts to run out. How do you evaluate the Wolverines right now?
I like the Wolverines. I do. And also, it's a good question you ask because the close games, yes, they do matter. We talk about it much more typically in football. Like, hey, they're used to winning and pulling out close games in the fourth quarter, a.k.a. the Kansas City Chiefs on their way to another Super Bowl appearance. Boy, how do they get it done? They don't panic in the biggest moments. And that's key. That means you call a timeout, your coach calms the waters down, has the perfect play, calling you guys able to go out and execute in the biggest moments. But also when you talk about that with a Michigan team, top 60 in the country here in adjusted tempo. And I like that because that means you're used to playing that style, but also if you have to get your shots off, you can run away with basketball games. Not using the old Virginia, let's just say, we're going to go really slow and no matter what's going to happen, it's going to be a 4-point game with a minute to go, but we're used to that. You don't want that. That can be like the exception to the rule, but it doesn't have to be the rule of law at that point. If you have the ability to use your offense and get up outside in tempo and blow a team off the court, advantage yours in March Madness here. You don't always have to slow it down, play great defense, and hope you make your shots over the final 5 minutes or get to the free throw line. That's why I like Michigan. They do play with some tempo, and that can help them out because, again, it doesn't always have to be close.
Yeah. The SEC is going to have the most teams from a single conference into the NCAA tournament. We'll talk about basketball's best conference this year to start off hour number 3. The Big Ten more than likely will be the only other league to have double-digit bids to the big dance, or at least the second most. 8 teams really solidified. The 5 on that graphic, UCLA, Illinois, and Oregon. There's about 3 teams, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Indiana, trying to be on the right side of the bubble to see the madness in March. And just to say, the overall outlook for the Big Ten, really not great this year, DRS, in terms of winning a national championship. Michigan State, shortest price, 40-1, 13th best around the nation. That 45-1 price on Wisconsin, 15th best. The only 2 teams out of the Big Ten inside the 15 best numbers to win a national championship. Let's go from the Big Ten to the Big 12, where Houston has the 3rd best number to win a national championship and just won the Big 12 for a second consecutive year. Both of the seasons the Cougs have been in this conference. A plus 140 price to reach the Final Four as well. You have an Iowa State team that, healthy, can be dangerous. Arizona and Tommy Lloyd can always make some noise in the big dance. Texas Tech looks to be incredibly balanced, and Grant McCaslin has done wonders this year in Lubbock. And, of course, the staple of March success within the Big 12, that would be Kansas, a 65-1 price now on the Jayhawks to win a national championship for the preseason number 1 team in the country. Big question about the Big 12. Donnie, does Kansas have the 2nd highest ceiling from teams out of the Big 12 this year in the tournament?
I don't know if they do because it's hard to take out what those preseason rankings were, but also understand this. You talk about CLV on your ticket and you take Kansas to start the season or you take Kansas now. Of course, it's a much different price and a great price point. Yeah. And also understand this, Kansas in the top 10 in the country in defensive rating. You know that is so key when you go on the road and play those, neutral court environments and those giant stadium types where you have a guy down low, Hunter Dickinson, that can control the paint, get the rebounds, and you can run your offense through. That is a major advantage. But also understand this. We talk a lot about the best team in that conference, and rightfully so. It's 16-1. That's Houston. 8th overall in offensive rating, 3rd overall in defensive rating. But the metric that might do you in there, 360th in adjusted tempo, which means you're not using your style play as a cream of the crop. More possessions, the better, because we're better than you. That might get them in trouble. We're not saying it will. It just could.
We'll continue the conversation next. We continue to have that updated outlook for the madness in the month of March in the NCAA tournament, going conference by conference. DRS in the Big 12, there is no doubt that Houston is the league's best shot of winning a national championship. 3rd best price to reach the Final Four, 3rd best number to win a national title. And Houston certainly looks the part right now after clinching their 2nd consecutive Big 12 regular season crown on Monday night with a road win in Lubbock. 13 consecutive road victories for the Cougs the nation's longest active streak. We asked about Kansas. Do they have the second highest ceiling? I don't think it's even close. The odds makers telling you that as well. I would take Iowa State and Texas Tech before KU. Heck, I might take some teams like BYU before I would take KU, and not just because BYU absolutely blew out Kansas last week in Provo. The Jayhawks have been an interesting team. They won the national championship in 2022. They have been ousted without getting to the second weekend 4 of the other 5 NCAA tournaments, 4 of the 5 years, including that year winning a national championship. And that's not the standard, of course, in Lawrence, where in the 12 years prior to the last half decade that I mentioned, they had at least reached the Sweet 16 in 9 of 12 years. I'm not so sure Kansas has the makeup this season to be a second weekend team. How many out of the ACC will? Because, Donnie, the last few years, there's been a conversation around what was once the basketball power, about the decline of this league. Not as many good teams, not as many teams getting to the NCAA tournament. And yet, when you look at the last few years, so many teams making deep runs. Even an NC State team as an 11 seed that only got to the big dance because they had a couple of great days in the ACC tournament and then continued that March momentum. Might we see the same for the ACC this year? Duke, a minus money price, one of 2 teams in minus money alongside Auburn to reach the Final Four, and the second best price to win a national championship. Duke still a hefty favorite to win the ACC right now, but still getting tested by Clemson and Louisville. As of this moment, Donnie, those are the only 3 surefire teams into the big dance. Wake Forest and UNC really flirting with that bubble position. 4 teams, according to Lenardi yesterday, including Wake Forest as the last team into the bracket as of this moment. North Carolina, the first team out. Big question for the ACC, outside of how many teams will reach the big dance, is Jon Scheyer, like his predecessor and his former head coach, Mike Krzyzewski, ready to lead Duke to a national championship run?
Could be, but also this is not your dad's ACC, as we like to say. In what world would you think back and like, hey, by the way, Ben, let me let you know a secret. Carolina's 11-6 in the ACC. That sounds like a 2 line. That sounds like a 3 at absolute worst. Now we're talking about them not even getting in to the tournament. Why? Because how bad the ACC is, and a lot of bad characters in this conference all the way through. But it is very top heavy. I do think Clemson is a decent program, 14-2 in the ACC. Also with Louisville, 15-2. A lot of fun. Chucky Hepburn there. They got a couple guys that can shoot the 3-point shot. They play with a decent tempo, a fun team to watch, and also very good offensively and defensively. But it just feels like in the ACC, Duke is just a single notch up from the rest of the class. And you said, wait a second, 14-2, 15-2, 16-1. On a night-to-night basis, at the top end and your ceiling, Duke is far away the best team in the ACC. Like, if you're going to put 2 teams and say A games are coming to play here between Duke, Louisville, and Clemson, Duke is probably going to win every single one of those games up against anybody else's perfect game that they can play. The only question is going to be is Scheyer used to making deep runs into the tournament and winning championships? Obviously, the answer is no. Are we taking a look here at Louisville saying, you know what? Last year was a terrible year and the Kenny Payne years are behind us. Can we all of a sudden put that behind us here at 15-2 or what Clemson can do? But for me, there's only one team you're really looking at in the tournament coming up, and it is the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, DRS, I would have to agree. I do wonder, though, right? With such a talented freshman core, that's not normally the type of teams that win games matter most in the month of March. But Cooper Flagg is generational. Con Knipple, one of the best shooters that you will find. Kaman Malawach, one of the best bigs in the ACC. And they have some veteran presence around those guys, like a Tyrese Proctor, like a Mason Gillis, who works as a reserve, who was a part of the Purdue team to get to the national championship game a season ago. Malik Brown, when he is healthy, for this team as well. Sion James, there's a lot to like about this Duke makeup outside of the outstanding freshman coached by Jon Scheyer. We'll see how it all plays out. It is year number 3 under Scheyer. By far, Duke, the best chance for the ACC. 25-3, top-rated team in KenPom, top 5 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. the Blue Devils are absolutely working teams in the ACC and expected to work teams like last night on the road at Miami as a 23.5-point favorite in winning by 37. Clemson's been a dangerous team in the tournament. I think Brad Brownell is one of the most underrated coaches around the country in college basketball. What Pat Kelsey has done this year in his first year with Louisville has been remarkable. It will be really interesting, Donnie, to see if Wake Forest and North Carolina can get into the big dance. The metrics are not great for either the Demon Deacons nor the Tar Heels, despite the fact that UNC has won 4 straight games. They only have a single quad one victory. But Donnie, again, the perceived downward spiral of the ACC, and yet in the last 3 NCAA tournaments, the ACC as a conference has had 4 teams reach the Final Four in total over the last 3 years. That's the most of any league in college basketball.
And money talks, it does. Like UNC in or out is a big deal to the tournament because of the national fan base that they do have, and rightfully so. But if you're just looking at the numbers itself, they deserve to be on the bubble, as you explained. Not very many big wins and just racking up wins against lower level competition in this conference. But if you do look at the top end again, like Ken Palm's net rating for Duke is 1. And the team in second place right now, just due to victories in conference with Louisville, they're 25th. Like, that is a massive disparity between a 16-1 and a 15-2 conference team where they're letting you show the underlying numbers really favor the Duke Blue Devils. It'll be an interesting ACC tournament because if somebody can knock off Duke here, let's just say that it's Carolina, those are big wins that you can stamp on that resume as you move forward and try to make it into the big dance.
You would think UNC has to do that in the ACC tournament as well. Let's talk the Big East next. In college football, there is the Power 4. In college basketball, there is the Power 5, and that includes the Big East. Tonight in Indianapolis, inside Hinkle Fieldhouse, St. John's has an opportunity with a victory against Butler to claim at least a share of a Big East regular season championship for the first time in more than 3 decades. The last year in 1991-92, the Lou Carnesecca era up in Queens. But now it's the Slick Rick era. Rick Pitino in his second season. And DRS in the Big East and out of the conference, St. John's has the best outlook to make a deep run in the Big Dance. But let's not forget, despite a disappointing season thus far based on relative expectations, the 2-time reigning champs also remain in the Big East. That would be UConn. Marquette, big home victory by 30 last night against Providence, trying to settle the waters before they enter postseason action. And Creighton, of course, is going to be a Big East tournament team as well, a tournament team from the Big East. 4 teams based on ESPN's bracketology yesterday from the Big East into the Big Dance, with Xavier a part of the list known as the first 4 out. When you look at the Big East, Donnie, the big question is this. Is St. John's a true national championship contender?
I actually think they are. Like, you look at the defensive rating, number 2 overall, it starts there. So typically when you hear that, and the way we've talked about St. John's up until, like, say the past 2 weeks is grimy team, going to play great defense, can't shoot their way out of a paper bag, but they're tough, and they got a coach who's been there, done that before. And say, okay, that might be enough just to make a deep run. But now when you take a look at the analytics here, also adjusted tempo, top 55 in the country, which means we're not moving at a glacier pace, which leaves limited possessions. You're getting out and you're running. And if they, which is a big question mark, but has been answered a little bit over the past week and a half or so, can make the outside shot, including the 3-point shot, why can't they?
Yeah.
Like, is the conference in the Big East what it was in the 1980s and early 1990s? No, it's not. They do still have some pretty good opponents there, Connecticut, Marquette, and Creighton. But St. John's, by far, to me, is the clear winner here because, number one, their offense is just starting to come together at the right time. They're always going to play defense. And as I told you, Rick Pitino was there, and the tempo is just a little bit higher than what you think a St. John's team would have at this point. So why not? So contender meaning, yes, they have a chance to win it. Absolutely, right. I would put St. John's in that category.
Listen, I think contender is a Final Four team, a team that reaches a regional final in the Elite Eight. And I do believe St. John's is the caliber of that team. I do just want to say this, right? It is a tournament known as madness. We see so many chaotic upsets and magical Cinderella runs, like an 11-seed at NC State that got hot at the right time and then became a captivating moment for a nation in college basketball. But often we see the cream rise to the top throughout the NCAA tournament as you go weekend after weekend after weekend. And it might be random, but really it is not when you have trends that date back 10, 15, and 20 years. And the metrics around the Johnnies right now are not those, Donnie, that would often lead to a team that really has success in March. Second most efficient defense, great, but 73rd most efficient offense. That is not the making of a balanced side by the Ken Pom metrics that makes a deep run in the big dance. Can they defy that? Sure. But does that mean they are likely to win a national championship as of this moment? Not necessarily. 19 of the last 20 national champions in men's college basketball have been a top 25 efficient offense. St. John's is pretty far from that distinction as of this moment. Donnie, how do you feel about UConn? They have the pedigree, although this team, of course, is very different. That is the case year over year in college basketball. Do you believe Connecticut, once they get into the NCAA tournament, can replicate that March dominance we have seen the last two seasons?
No, because the expectations then would be that they can actually make a Final Four and have a chance to win a national championship. I just don't think that's the case. And sometimes you can catch a little bit of lightning in a bottle, but we haven't seen it yet. It wasn't as if it's like, hey, man, that was a tough start. Hurley got a late start in the recruiting process, didn't hit the transfer portal, thought he was going to take the Lakers job. They started out extremely slow. You look at them in a Big East, which, again, isn't a great Big East, basically alternating wins and losses here, not against the best competition. Now, you do have Georgetown, Providence, Marquette, and Seton Hall. That should be a minimum 3-1 out before you get to the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden. But I don't think this feels like a lightning in a bottle team. They're just waiting to get to the big stage because they're bored of the regular season because all they do is win championships. It doesn't feel like that way to me.
It is really different, right? It is still just a tournament where your 35-plus games that you played previously can be discarded. How much is that pedigree worth? Hour number 3 up next. Welcome to hour number 3, our third and final live right here on this Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie. I am Ben. A lot to get to here in our third and final hour. We continue our March Madness outlook for the big conferences around college hoops. We'll break down some college basketball action as well to end out this third and final hour and send you into your Wednesday evening. NBA action, 9-game slate around the association, and a ton of handicaps for your two premier NBA handicappers on this network. And Keith Stewart will join us up next. We get into a really good part of the PGA Tour calendar starting here in the opening weekend of March. The Florida Swing begins. This week, it's the Cognizant Classic. Next week, it's the Arnold Palmer Invitational, a signature event at Arnie's Place. And then golf's unofficial fifth major, the Players' Championship, the weekend following. So a lot of good times in store, DRS, around this sports landscape.
Absolutely. Also, you take a look at, okay, March is coming up here, but spring training. And just when you wipe those tears away from the worst, I guess, annual thing that we have to watch, some sort of montage at 1 a.m. in the morning, one shining moment, shut it all down. Then we head up to baseball. We get to a real season. How about that? You like a little slander?
A real season?
Go.
A real season that's 162 games when nobody could tell you what's happening from May to July. Get out of town, man. The two things that you like, slander the NFL Combine, if you will. Nobody dislikes one shining moment except for you.
Yeah. That's why they put it on like 2 a.m. where nobody's watching because nobody cares. How about that?
They put it on at 2 a.m. because they're idiots and they have the national championship game start at 9:20. And they tried to tell us, DRS, don't you worry. We've heard your calls. We've heard your concerns. We're moving up the national championship game by 30 minutes. 8:50 p.m. Eastern time tip in about 5.5 weeks on a Monday night. Like, what are we doing, dude? Like, okay, you're not going to start it at 6 p.m. Eastern time, right? Because then you alienate a good portion of this country.
You don't alienate
But
anybody.
I guarantee you that the West Coast can tune in at 5 p.m. if it matters that much. Put it at 8 p.m. at bare
Hear
minimum
me out,
for a
Ben.
2-hour game. It's just ridiculous.
Hear me out. Friday
Please.
night Final Four, Sunday 6 p.m. National Championship game. You want to break records on who's going to watch a Sunday? You can't put big games on in the 6 o'clock hour on Sunday. Look at the Super Bowl. They do just fine with it. Try it that way. 6 p.m. Sunday, National Championship. We're all in. Why can't we do that?
Look at the women's national championship game that has been at 3 p.m. Eastern the last few years. Record-setting numbers. A lot of that, of course, the affinity for Caitlin Clark, South Carolina's dominance, so on and so forth. But it's also, hey, nobody's doing anything on a Sunday afternoon in early April. Let's tune into this marquee window. Listen, for how this segment started and your slander of one shining moment, we're back, man. Not the craziest thing you've ever said about a Friday night Final Four. It would, though, I guess, based on how the NCAA women's tournament is structured right now, go up in competition. They would have to kind of find some new arrangement there. But I don't mind it. I don't mind it whatsoever. No, come on.
We have the NBA. Look, college basketball for women, summertime. Come on. We all win.
Just like,
they could have the whole summer to themselves.
Feasibly
It'd be
can't
beautiful.
Because
It absolutely can happen. We can make it.
It literally has to be within the calendar year, too.
College. Girls make more money in college than the pros here. So who's really the professionals at this point? How about that?
Well, some of that, depending on your NIL deals. Anyway, let's get into our topic of conversation here to start off our number 3. We have gone conference by conference at the high major level in the power conferences in men's college basketball to give you the March outlook for each league, what their prices are to reach the Final Four and cut down the nets as a national champ. But, Donnie, there is no doubt that the best league this year in college hoops is the SEC. 13 teams for Joe Lunardi's bracketology projected into the big dance as of yesterday. And then Georgia upset Florida at home, even bolstering their March outlook as well. How many teams from the SEC will get in, and how will the SEC perform with a ton that should feature into the bracket? That was the question for all of you in Fade the Public. On paper, Donnie, it might seem a little bit outlandish at this stage of the season to ask the great people out there this conference versus the field. But when you might have 13 teams setting a new record for the most bids from a single conference in a single NCAA tournament, it's not all that crazy. When 3 of the 4 1 seeds might be from the same conference. When you look at the national championship odds right now, in 4 of the 6 best prices are from the same conference. It is not all that crazy to ask the public, which conference will the NCAA tournament men's champion come from? The SEC or the field? That was the question at SportsGrid on Twitter. And the public still going to take all the bids that they can with the field versus the SEC at nearly 65% of the votes. It's how I voted too, but I don't think it's all that crazy if you in the public put a vote in for the SEC.
I put a vote in for the SEC. I'm actually kind of surprised. I expected to click on this and see the SEC a 65% or more favorite over the field at this point. Why? Because you're getting the best basketball conference with legitimate, it feels like a quarter of the field coming from one side, which means if they are stacked appropriately, you have an even amount in the East, in the South, in the Midwest, and the West, and maybe you can have 3 out of the 4 teams or 2 out of the 4 teams from the SEC in the Final Four at that point. You say, boy, that sounds crazy because as Ben pointed out, yes, you probably want multiple conferences and teams like Duke are not in the SEC and really good basketball programs like Houston are not there, and that makes some sense. But the net rating, 2, 4, 5, 6, 10, all in the same conference here. I just think I want to take the best conference and take the best teams from that conference and have them in March Madness as my chance to win it all. I think I can do that. If I'm going to get 13 teams in from the SEC, give me that conference.
The current record for the most bids from a single league for the NCAA tournament was the old Big East, which had 11 in 2011. The SEC is going to shatter that. I don't think there is any doubt, DRS. They get more than 11, bare minimum 12. but maybe 13. Heck, 14 cannot be considered out of the realm of possibility right now because you have a team like Georgia pulling off a stunner last night. Oklahoma has an opportunity on this Wednesday evening for a huge upset. That is how good this league is. Of course, are your resumes bolstered by playing this league night in, night out from early January? Sure, but they are deserving of it, and I don't think you can really argue. Auburn, the number one team in the nation for a 7th consecutive week. Best price to reach the Final Four, minus 155. Best price to win a national championship at plus 340. But those 3 other teams just under the Tigers, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee. 3 of the other 5 best prices to win a national championship. The SEC has 4 of the 6 best numbers to cut down the nets. That is why it is not crazy to vote for the SEC or to even ask the question, the SEC versus the field, here even at the end of February.
It is, and it's not. And again, there's a lot of other teams that get in. Upsets are going to take place. But if you ask me, like, who is a legitimate chance to win a championship? You look at Auburn, absolutely. Even Alabama, yes. Florida, even though they got knocked off against Georgia, yes. Tennessee, offensively and defensively, you have a lot of fun teams. And also, teams like Kentucky just lurking around, knowing how good they are on offense and the explosiveness they can provide from the three-point line. That conference is fantastic. We'll see if it holds up there to some of the other teams that are coming to crash the party like Duke and Houston, as we pointed out. So we'll see. You get 13 teams in, I'll take my chances with the SEC coming down with a ring.
13 of 68. 13 of 64 maybe by the time we get through the first 4. It is ludicrous and ridiculous. And oh, by the way, Mizzou, big 30-point home win last night. Now a 35-1 price, even in front of Kentucky. Rinse, wash, and repeat at college basketball this time of year down the home stretch of the regular season at the high major level. Each and every night, we've got marquee matchups. Each and every night, we've got huge ramifications for conference title races in the regular season, conference tournament positioning, and of course, those implications for the big dance as well. Top 20 tilt tonight in College Park, the spring break destination of the Northeast. It is Maryland, ranked 16th in the country, against number 8 Michigan State. And the Terps at home are absolutely rolling right now. Maryland laying 4.5 points now, DRS, against the Spartans, who occupy that top spot in the Big Ten. 13-3 the record for Sparty, 13-3 the same record for the Wolverines, but MSU has the tiebreaker advantage. Big one for Maryland, not out of the Big Ten title race by any means, but also to try to earn that double bye for the conference tournament in just a few weeks in Indianapolis. 4.5 point spread in favor of the Terps at home tonight. Total 150 and a hook. What's the play for this big ball game in College Park?
That's a stone cold lock here, line, I should say, for Maryland. But that doesn't mean it always wins at this point because Michigan State got some pretty good matchup advantages. Both have very good defenses. Number 1 overall in conference play, Michigan State. Number 2 overall in Maryland. And we've told you time and time again, yes, it is true. Big-time conferences, it's really hard to win on the road, and Maryland certainly has been running. But if we are looking at styles that make fights here, Michigan State could care less about the three-point line at making the shots. Maryland say, okay, we're going to defend that. But however, point distribution inside the arc, number 3 in conference play is Michigan. Number 2 at letting you score inside the arc is Maryland. That helps. Flip it over to Michigan State's defense. You take a look at Maryland, who does shoot the ball very well from three-point range, but doesn't take a lot of three-point shots against the best defensive team on the three-point line at only 27.8% for Michigan State. However, you take a look at the point discrepancies there, and maybe they can get to the free throw line. But I'm going to tell you this. How about this? That line tells me Maryland, and I'm telling myself no. Give me Michigan State with the points tonight in a close game in the Crab House. Come on now.
It's going to be a great one. It's going to be a huge one for Michigan State trying to stay atop the Big Ten. If the Spartans can pull off the road upset tonight, booked as the underdog, they are in prime position to win that Big Ten regular season crown for the first time since the 1920 season. Of course, very high hopes for what that 20 season would be. But, of course, no NCAA tournament that year. The year prior was the last Final Four trip for Michigan State under Tom Izzo, 2018-19. And this Spartans team very much resembles that one. Michigan State has been a dog twice in its last 3 games. They have won outright both times on the road against Illinois and against Michigan on Friday, with a home win against Purdue and a cover sandwiched in. A great 3-game win streak for the Spartans. They have gone under in 7 of their last 8. Maryland has won 4 in a row. They are 3-0-1 against the spread in this 4-game win streak. They have gone over in all 4 wins consecutively. If you think the Spartans, DRS, keep this game close and within striking distance, I think it does favor an under of that total of 150 and a hook. Both teams sitting pretty good metric-wise based on those standards from Kenneth Pomeroy. Top 25 offense, top 25 defense. Both the Spartans and the Terrapins qualifying both of those metrics right now. It's why they have the 2 of the 3 best prices to make a Final Four run out of the Big Ten. Just a huge game tonight in College Park. The number 1 team in the country at home tonight, that would be Auburn hosting Ole Miss. The Red Rebs have fallen out of the AP top 25. Auburn booked as a 12.5-point home favorite. Auburn's won their last few games, booked as a double-digit favorite, but Donnie, not overwhelmingly impressive in terms of the spread. Can the Tigers cover tonight against the Rebs at home?
They probably can, but for me, when I take a look at the statistics, nothing really sticks out to me like, a major advantage either way, other than Auburn just being a better basketball team and at home than Mississippi. So usually in those circumstances, I take out like the 12.5 or a team total and just look at the total itself and go under. Like if I don't have a clear mismatch at the 3-point line or a clear mismatch down lower, one team fouls so much and the other team loves to get to the free throw line, I don't see that. So for me in SEC play, it looks like one of those again, like Auburn's like, we're number 1 in the country. We just need to rack up wins. We don't need style points here. So I'll take the under 153.5 in this ball game because I don't have that outlier. Like, oh my goodness, Auburn should destroy them at this part of the game here when I know they're going to win. So I lean on the under in those instances here, Ben.
When you look at Ole Miss, they're 2-4 against the spread as a dog in SEC play. 1 outright victory as a double-digit underdog against Alabama. That game stayed under. But Ole Miss has been playing 4 of their last 6 to the over. Auburn over in 6 of their last 8. I think if you like Auburn tonight, if you think they can win comfortably, you look to that point total maybe on the rise. But the Tigers, DRS, are 13-1 straight up in the SEC, as we well know. But they're just 6-8 against the spread. They have been booked as a favorite in basically every one except that road game in Tuscaloosa against the Crimson Tide. We talked about 13 teams projected in the NCAA men's tournament bracket yesterday by ESPN's Joe Lunardi. One of the teams that is flirting with the bubble has a huge opportunity tonight at home in Norman as only a 2.5-point underdog against 17th ranked Kentucky. That line itself, just being 2.5 DRS, might tell you all you need to know about this matchup tonight between the Sooners and the Cats.
Yeah, because Kentucky's not bringing any defense into the equation. If you have some semblance of an offense, you can get it going at home, which is why that line is so low. And also taking a look at a 162.5 as a total. But for me, if you look at a Kentucky going against that Oklahoma defense, there's a lot of advantages that you like. 40% in conference play in the toughest conference that you can play in the SEC. That's what Kentucky does from the 3-point line. Inside the arc, third at about 55%, shooting 73% from the line with a team that Oklahoma that does foul a lot. For me, if I'm looking at any way to approach this here, Kentucky should eat from the 3-point line. Do I think they win this game? Maybe so, but a team total over for Kentucky makes more sense to me than the actual game itself because they can lose and score a lot of points because the defense isn't good, but I think their offense shows up tonight in Norman. Give me the team total over for Kentucky tonight.
The Sooners a huge boost on Saturday, upsetting Mississippi State at home as an underdog in a very high-scoring game, 93-87, over a total at 149 and a hook. DRS, enjoy the money line, my friend. We shall talk tomorrow. More around college basketball next on TEL. We round out our 3 hours together live right here on this Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid. I am Ben Stevens. As we go around the country in college basketball, a huge Wednesday night slate in what could be a monumental moment in St. John's men's basketball history tonight inside Hinkle Fieldhouse, if they can dispel the magic in that building. The Johnnies a 7.5-point favorite against Butler. With a victory tonight, St. John's will claim at least a share of a Big East, regular season championship for the first time since 1991-92. Over 3 decades ago, the final year of Louis up in Queens, that was Lou Carnesecca. That is what Rick Pitino has done in Queens for St. John's in just his second year at the helm. St. John's not just hoping for a Big East regular season crown, but to use that, take the momentum into Madison Square Garden, and maybe, just maybe, flirt with the one line, but at least solidify itself as potentially a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. 7.5-point spread tonight in favor of the Red Storm against the Butler Bulldogs. 7.5-point spread in favor of Texas A&M against Vanderbilt at home in College Station. I think A&M kind of shows some resolve tonight, like that look, as they take on Mark Byington and the Commodores. Vandy trying to battle for a spot in the NCAA tournament. Clemson trying to keep pace atop the ACC against a struggling Notre Dame team. The Tigers 13.5-point favorite. The other Tigers in Memphis, 13.5-point favorite against Rice. Arizona now close to a 15.5-point favorite against Utah. Weird week for the Utes in Salt Lake. They dismissed head coach Craig Smith, who's had some pretty good success there for Utah. Very weird time to make a coaching change. A lot of speculation. It's tied to a lack of investment for men's basketball by Utah. We shall see. Craig Smith, a pretty bright coach. There's been a lot of investment elsewhere in the state for Utah's biggest rival. That would be BYU, ranked for the first time this year inside the AP top 25 in the Cougs, trying to keep it rolling. 4.5-point favorite tonight in Tempe for this Kevin Young team that is playing so well at this moment, and of course should only be getting better with A.J. Debinsa coming to Provo next season. So that's a couple of the ranked teams that we have in action, but many more games on this Wednesday that will factor into NCAA tournament implications. Bubble Watch now officially on with only 3 days remaining in this month of February. Can Arkansas stay on the right side of the bubble for the big dance? John Calipari and his Razorbacks playing so much better since that huge road victory interrupt for Cal's return to Lexington. They're a 3.5-point favorite tonight at home against Texas. Let's look at what Arkansas has done as of late, because they are playing better. They are covering in a lot more games. They're only 5-9 in SEC play. They're 16-11 overall this year. But including that win on the road in Kentucky, Arkansas has won 4 of its last 7. They have covered in 6 of their last 7. The only non-cover on the road in College Station a few weekends back against Texas A&M. Lost that game by 8 as a 7.5-point dog. Arkansas, huge home victory as a slight favorite against Missouri over the weekend, hoping to keep that momentum going against Texas tonight. 3.5-point spread. If you believe in motivation as a handicapping mentality and instrument, the Hogs certainly need it tonight inside Bud Walton. 3.5-point spread. UConn, big favorite tonight at home against Georgetown, trying to play its best basketball as it enters the Big East tournament, trying to build that momentum inside Madison Square Garden for perhaps some more March Madness magic, I should say, in the big dance. UConn did not look good, losing by 14 against St. John's inside MSG on Sunday. Other Big East games, Villanova, big favorite in New Jersey against Seton Hall, 8.5-point spread. Hall ball is the worst team in the Big East. Can they keep the game close? Creighton, 15.5-point favorite in Omaha, taking on DePaul. Indiana, flirting with the bubble. They're a 6.5-point home favorite tonight against Penn State, trying to ride the momentum of the rivalry win on Sunday afternoon against Purdue. Ohio State, a slight favorite in LA against USC. The Buckeyes could be on the right side of the bubble, but the overall record just 15-13. Wake Forest, the last team in as of yesterday. They host Virginia, and SMU on the road against Cal cannot afford any bad losses. The early line returns tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on SportsGrid.